Taylor Morris, and the issue that I decided to address throughout this video is racism in the workforce, specifically for black women, young and younger black women in a sense, because I feel that it relates personally to me because I am a black woman going into the workforce, specifically in the healthcare workforce. And so I feel like that's a huge problem that needs to be addressed. And I want to get different people's viewpoints, do different research to figure out exactly where this problem is coming from, what is the problem, and basically what are the solutions. Because this issue is not an ethical one at all, to judge somebody based on their skin color and even further over the sex that they are. It's not good, or it's not ethical, it's not morally right. And so I just basically wanted to cover this topic and address this issue. So how did this become such a large issue in society? After researching and going through different people's experiences, I began to realize that this issue has very large historical context reaching all the way back to slavery, where racism basically stems from. And with that being said, this carries on into the workforce because in society it's still very prominent. It's just in different forms, like discrimination or little comments or just not understanding someone's culture or background. And so that really makes a difference in how people treat other people. I feel that it gets brushed under the rug from my research. It just gets ignored, and maybe little comments, they were like, oh, someone didn't mean what they said, or oh, they didn't mean to do that, they don't know any better. And the fact that things aren't being addressed and people aren't really becoming educated over the matter, which is making the problem grow bigger than it ever should be. So I'm on my way to interview my first interview person at the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs.
My name is Kelly Harris, and I serve as the Assistant Director in the Office of Multicultural Student Affairs here at UMKC. I also lead a mentoring program that's called ACE, and it supports African American students and assists with retention and higher graduation rates.
So we can go ahead and get right into it. What experiences, negative, more say, have you had as a black woman working in the workforce or working in the field that you do?
One incident or experience that comes to mind is previous to this position, I worked in college access, and so I would often take a group of minority students on various trips. And when we would unload off the bus, you could just see the reaction of the non-minority people looking like, oh man, there's a lot of minorities there. Are they going to be disruptive here at this restaurant? Like, the looks weren't really positive and warm and welcoming. And so that would be sometimes frustrating. And often when we would leave, a lot of the staff would make comments and say, oh wow, they were really well behaved. And so it was unfortunate that those stereotypes come to mind initially when they see minorities. So that made it difficult with me as a leader because I'm very protective of our students, and I hate for the students to be stereotyped and just because of the color of their skin. And so that's one example that I could think of.
And what do you think are different things that we can use to combat this issue?
I think it's important for me, myself, to serve as a really good role model and leader. So when I got those looks, I didn't respond negatively. I didn't ask why they were looking at me like that. I simply just made sure I continued the high expectations of my students, and I knew that they were going to be respectful and essentially prove some of those stereotypes that they had on the students wrong. And so often when they would say, oh wow, they behave really well, I could have said, well, what do you mean? How did you expect for them to act? And I just said, oh yeah, they're really great students. I have expectations. They're really great students. I think showing that I'm positive myself and I interact positive with other people. Hopefully it'll change some of the negative perceptions that others might have. And also even with my peers. So maybe non-minority peers might have assumptions. They might then see like, oh, just because she's minority in this work field, that doesn't mean that she's not going to behave professional.
So on my way to one of my interviews to discuss their experience with racism in their work field in the healthcare industry, I have quite a few people. I have someone from pharmacy, I have someone from nursing aspects, and I also got somebody from outside of both of those, somebody who just works in diversity and inclusion, just to get somebody's outside point of view to see what really is the cause and what's the problem. Great. So we're going to go ahead and get into the questions.
Okay.
The first one is, do you feel that racism is a problem, especially for you as a black woman in this field, and why?
Yes, I would definitely say that racism is an issue. I haven't experienced anything like, well, that actually happened to me, but definitely I have like African American coworkers, and they've definitely experienced some racial things, whether it's being called names. I know some person got into like a physical altercation with somebody as far as like being called names and things of that sort, because of, it could be anything from like their medicine not costing what it used to cost, or them not being able to get their medicine, anything, just frustration with those types of things. So yes, and also I would say racism is an issue because I'm an aspiring pharmacist, so I just got accepted into pharmacy school. And when I tell people that like I want to be a pharmacist, they aren't like, they're kind of shocked in a sense, because they're not, I mean, I guess it's not usual for African Americans to be, you know, doctors, let alone pharmacists. So yes. Mm-hmm.
Why do you think this is a complicated problem?
Racism?
Yes.
I think it's a complicated problem because, you know, like, it's not normal. Like, I feel like it's not, like I said previously, it's not normal for African Americans to be in doctors, lawyers. I mean, it's more common today than any day, but I'm saying, like, it's still not a common thing. It's still, like, majority Caucasian people make up, you know, majority of our workforce. They run everything from politics to healthcare, literally. So that's why I think it's an issue, because it's not common.
Okay. And then, do you know of any solutions that may fix this problem?
Yes. So I feel like that me, myself, I am like a living solution. So I feel like me, like being an African American pharmacist and a woman at that, and going to get my degree in chemistry and going to be a pharmacist, I feel like me being an example for others, African Americans, is definitely a solution, because people that like aren't sure if they want to do it or aren't sure if they can do it, if they go to a pharmacy and they see someone who looks like them, like me, they definitely will, you know, aspire to be that. Say, she did it, so I know, you know, I could do something like that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So if you can introduce yourself and say what field of work you're in.
Hello, I'm Sydney Jackson. I am in the nursing field. I work on a cardiac transplant unit at St. Luke's.
Okay. So I'm going to go right into the questions. What have been your experiences with racism in your current field of work?
I feel like some of my experiences with racism have been seeing patients of color not being taken seriously in regards of their pain, and also me personally, people feeling that when I tell them that I'm pursuing a degree or that I'm trying to pursue a higher position, them being surprised because of my skin color.
And then what do you think are any solutions to this problem?
I think for solutions, it'll just be educating people on their ignorance in terms of race, and just showing them that everybody has the same opportunities and feels the same way as everyone else.
So if you could give an introduction of yourself and your field of work. Go ahead.
My name is Tamara, and I am a pharmacy technician at Walgreens.
Okay. So do you think racism is a big problem in your field of work as a black woman?
No, I do not think that racism is a big problem in my field of work because my pharmacy is very diverse. I've never had any personal issues with racism at my job. Everything that we do is pretty equal and all fair, and there's no one judges anyone for their color, culture, anything like that.
Okay, cool. Thanks. So many things are happening now to help solve this issue. Different people are doing case studies. Different people are doing diversity trainings, different trainings and workforces. It's such as, Starbucks had that mandatory diversity training because of the racist incidents that have been happening. So there's been a lot of different trainings such as those happening recently. Where do we go from here? Basically, continue to educate, education, because the more you know, the more you are able to be conscious of issues and different things that you could solve the problem to. In a large scale, we just need to keep educating everybody. Get it in schools, get it in training, get it in workforce, implement consequences to different actions. And that's how things are going to actually make a change.